Perloff. We're here, Radio Row, Mandalay Bay. It's all happening. And Perloff, we like to be even on the show. So if we interviewed a Kansas City Chiefs reporter, we want to get the 49ers point of view.
Right. We don't want to be like the NFL and have a clear Chiefs bias.
No, not us, not our show. David Lombardi is here. He covers the 49ers for The Athletic. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's great meeting both of you.
Listen, you are in the middle of a firestorm. I mean, really a hailstorm. And that is the conversation around Brock Purdy. Of all the people, I never thought it would get this heated. When you look at Purdy and the conversation around him, what's fair and what do you think is unfair when we talk about Brock Purdy?
Well, like you said, this firestorm, to me, came out of nowhere in many ways. I'll tweet something after a game about Brock Purdy, and multiple national show talking heads will pick it up. And for some reason, it's this lightning rod. I don't know, it's because people might want – he must be drawing – a lot of clicks and a lot of interest and a lot of views, because otherwise I don't think people would be talking about him as passionately. But look at the facts of this situation. You've got a very low draft pick, the lowest that there could possibly be, pick number 262, at the helm of a good team. I get it. But all of the numbers, and I'm going deep into the efficiency numbers, top in the NFL. Historically good in some cases, right? I think the best comparison, and I wrote a big piece last week comparing this team to the greatest show on turf, Rams, who are a little bit more pass forward. This team is obviously a little bit more run forward, but a lot of the efficiency numbers are like Kurt Warner's, and Kurt Warner is reminded of himself in Brock Purdy in many ways. Schematically, again, things are different. Physically, things are different, but the extent to which the 49ers are producing offensively has been staggeringly high, to where I don't really think there should be a debate. You know, I think that this is a quarterback who's performing at a top level, and he's shocking everybody in doing that. I don't understand why that's such a polarizing thing, right? Normally we've celebrated underdog stories.
I think
here it's controversial.
I think there's this idea out there that he throws a short pass to Debo or McCaffrey, and they do all
incorrect.
the work. Which I know he has a lot of air yards. But still,
Mahomes has a greater percentage of yak yards than Purdy.
Well, that's because Mahomes doesn't trust his receivers down.
No. Mahomes in his MVP years had a higher percentage of yak yards than Brock Purdy.
But Brock Purdy, okay, just eyeballing, he doesn't really throw bombs. So how is he getting all these yards?
He does. He had a deep pass completion percentage of 64% this year, and he threw, I would say, 3 or 4 times as many. I could look at the numbers. As Jimmy Garoppolo, who wasn't throwing downfield. So I think a lot of the Garoppolo stereotype follows Purdy around. The 49ers' explosive pass rate was the second highest since 2000 this year. The highest since 2000 was the greatest show on turf, Rams.
Is part of the strategy to throw it off an opponent's face mask on those long passes?
It's a great play.
No, but so I think there are a lot of stereotypes about the 49ers yak, and the two top yak-generating teams in the NFL, the 49ers and the Chiefs. It is that's the goal in NFL offense these days. Teams aren't as good at tackling as they used to be. The training camp rules and the contact rules, if you can get the ball to playmakers in space, you're going to pick up points, pick up yardage. And any quarterback that is not facilitating yak, I don't think is doing a good job. And that's why Mahomes and Purdy at the top of the league right now. But go and watch the tape. They have been pushing the ball downfield. That's what has opened up this offense in a way that they didn't have it open before.
David Lombardi is joining us from The Athletic. He covers the 49ers. We're talking about Brock Purdy right now and where to sort of put him on the spectrum of elite quarterbacks and how that's generated a lot of controversy. Or, not controversy, more of like a lightning rod sports discussion. So I'm one of the people who I'll tell you, this part of the Purdy conversation is what bothers me, the MVP stuff. So that's where I was like, all right, it feels like, and you look at the metrics, that McCaffrey is definitely carrying more than his share of the load. And more than that, I thought that putting Brock Purdy in the MVP debate is doing that thing we always do, which is elevating a guy way before he might be worth it, hyping him up just to tear him down later if he doesn't live up to this standard. Like, he got the whole world in a year and a half in the NFL, and that to me never squared.
Well, here's the thing. MVP is most valuable player. I think that Christian McCaffrey is definitely the best player on the 49ers. I think he might be the best player in the league. It then depends on what your definition or criteria for the MVP award is, and I think that's why it's gone to a quarterback in 10 straight years now. My opinion this year has been constant. They're both finalists, right? They're 2
Sure.
of the 5 finalists. I think Christian McCaffrey is the best player on the 49ers, but I also do think that Brock Purdy is the most valuable player on the 49ers.
Why?
I think those are two different things. You saw it last year in the NFC Championship
Yeah.
game. The minute that he goes out, the entire offense collapsed. You have to be – in this offense, you have to make quick decisions to distribute the football. And as much as anybody wants to say that point guard is a pejorative term, I don't think it is. I think that's the role of the position. You have to be able to distribute, and if anybody could do it, then the 49ers would have been a whole lot better with Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard. That's
You know,
for
it's
sure.
funny about that. David Lombardi is here. He covers the 49ers for The Athletic. We do this thing on Thursdays on the show called The Multiverse of Maggie and Perloff. We do a what if and a what could have been. We go back and, like, if one sliding door had happened this way or that, how would sports have been different? Last week we did what if Trey Lance never got hurt? But you just gave me an idea, David. Maybe we should have done what if Josh Johnson had never got hurt in the NFC Championship game, and what would have happened there? But
it was already ugly when he was in.
No,
If you remember, that was a big drop-off in that NFC Championship
Yeah, I mean,
game,
I was
so.
at that game. The officials were terrified of the Eagles fans. I'm an Eagles fan. That would have been a tough game for anybody. But what about Trey Lance, though? Would he have ever been able to do what Brock Purdy's doing? So do Niners people just look back on that as a mistake?
I think, Niners fans or
Well, no,
Niners people?
the front
Yeah.
office. Like, Shanahan and John Lynch, do they say picking Trey Lance number 3 overall was a mistake?
I think what they and the reason they've built such a strong roster is they understand that the draft is a crapshoot, and the draft is like throwing darts up at a board. And with your earlier picks, you're going to be closer to the dartboard, and with your later picks, you're going to be further away. But even with the earlier ones, you're not guaranteed to hit that bullseye.
yeah,
And
they paid a handsome price to try to get that close.
Yeah, and they got that close, and obviously Trey Lance is not with the team anymore. But then they hit the bullseye,
Right.
standing further back. And one thing about them is that their accuracy rate with those 4th to 7th rounders has been really good, which is, I think, that's a different story, testament to how well their scouting department and coaching staff works together. But I mean, if you get tied up in one pick in the NFL, like, obviously it didn't work out. Like, I think everybody knows that. But if you get tied up, oh my God, we lost all this draft capital in this one pick, I think you're losing picture of the big picture, which is it is a crapshoot, and it's the aggregate that counts in the draft.
I think that people look at the philosophy of that pick to have a running quarterback in that Shanahan offense. When you just said Brock Purdy's timing is the key, it's like it seems like they had the wrong philosophy around their quarterback choice.
So Shanahan's always going to be, you have to throw first, you have to win from the pocket, and the legs are a bonus. He thought that Trey Lance playing in a pro-style system at North Dakota State, which was the closest to what the 49ers run offensively. They were doing under center stuff. They were doing play action stuff. He thought that he would be moldable clay. He was very young.
Yeah.
He had only played a year, and Shanahan saw Trey Lance, and he's like, oh, my God. My dad coached John Elway. My dad coached Steve Young. These were two guys who had a lot of athleticism, but were moldable clay in that they were developed into pocket passers first. So they took a big swing on Trey Lance, and I think a lot of other teams were interested in doing that as well. They took a big swing by trading up because I think they thought the Falcons might pick him. I think the Falcons were right after the 49ers that year. And they thought that they, with development, working under Jimmy Garoppolo, what never was the plan to start him right away, would be able to turn him into that pocket passer that could also run. It wasn't a running quarterback first, if that makes sense. They thought that he had the potential to be that pro-style guy. Turns out that maybe he could have developed, but then Brock Purdy showed up the next year.
Yep, and here we are at the Super Bowl.
You know what's crazy is he can move too. He's got that burst, and you saw it in the NFC Championship game. So Shanahan now has the pocket-style quarterback that can also create out of structure in Brock Purdy.
David, can't tell you how much we appreciate this. David Lombardi, love reading him in The Athletic and covering the 49ers. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thanks.